Good morning. I'm Pastor Isaac. I'm here with Sergio today.
Good morning.
I know it's been a couple of weeks since I've been here, so I'm glad to be back with y'all, and glad to be sitting here with Sergio, and we can study together. We're on lesson 10 already, third quarter. I know we're winding down in the year already. It just doesn't seem that long ago we were on the first quarter, but I'm glad you've chosen to join with us this morning and study with us, whether it's morning time or evening or afternoon, whenever you study with us by watching this video. I'm glad you're joining us. And before we get started, Sergio, would you open with prayer?
Yeah, I would love
All
to.
right, thanks.
Father God, we come to you. We ask for guidance and we ask for your Holy Spirit to be with us today as we study your word and as we learn from your word. Please be with each of us and bless us on this Sabbath and help us to take away what you're teaching us and apply it in our lives.
Amen.
In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
All right. You know, I think that's one of the most vital aspects, Sergio, is that no matter what we study, no matter what we read, if we can't apply it,
Yeah, it's kind of
then pointless. Right?
yeah, it is a bit in vain, right?
Right, in vain. I like that. All right, well, I want to go ahead and read our memory text, if that's all right. I'm going to read it from the New Living Translation. And so it goes like this: Leviticus chapter 23, verse 3. Now, you might recognize this if you're familiar with the Ten Commandments, but this is not this is not where we traditionally find the Ten Commandments.
Yes, Exodus.
You may work for 6 days each week, but on the seventh day all work must come to a complete stop. It is the Lord's Sabbath day of complete rest, a holy day to assemble for worship. It must be observed wherever you live. And frankly, that's the theme for this entire lesson is Sabbath rest. This lesson that we're in here. And that's the title for Saturday's lesson is Sabbath rest. So we're going to explore this. What does it mean not to work? What does it mean to come to a complete stop on Sabbath? And as we look at some of this, in the history, we're going to see that humans, being who we are, we've gotten things wrong from time to time,
Yeah.
right? We've misinterpreted
Quite a lot, yes.
Quite a lot. You're right. So I'm going to go ahead and read that first part here on Saturdays, and then we'll jump right into Sunday. We hear all sorts of arguments against keeping the seventh-day Sabbath, don't we? We hear that Jesus changed the Sabbath to Sunday, or that Jesus abolished the Sabbath, or that Paul did, or that the apostles replaced the seventh-day Sabbath with Sunday in honor of the resurrection, and so forth. In recent years, some of the arguments have become more sophisticated, claiming, for instance, that Jesus is our Sabbath rest. And, that's accurate. But the second part of that is, just because Jesus is our Sabbath rest, the argument goes, therefore we don't need to keep that day or any day holy. And of course, there will always be the argument, strange as it is, that by resting on the seventh day, we are somehow seeking to work our way to heaven. That is odd because if that were the case, we could make that case for any of the Ten Commandments. And yet, all of Christianity says you can't work your way to heaven by doing any of it. So it is curious that would be specific to the fourth commandment. And it makes me wonder too, Sergio, whether I've grown up as an Adventist, and so it's difficult for me to see from different perspectives or different faiths. Have you always grown up as an Adventist?
No, not always. So I do have a certain. Bible clearly says they all are sin. They're lack.
Sure. Yeah.
And so there's no way we can do salvation on a merit-based scenario, or God never intended it for it to be that way, and it couldn't be that way because of Adam,
right,
and because of us and our natures. But yeah, I come from a country called it's in Eastern Europe, and it's like 80%, 99% Eastern Orthodox.
Okay.
So it's a sort of a older, I guess, Eastern Catholic. It has it's very similar.
Some roots.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
The schism and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But for example, in school I was called in Russian, it's like a subotnik. It's like I'm the Saturday guy. I was the Saturday guy.
Okay, that was
that was
the label.
That was the identify right there because the odd things is that we went to on Saturday, we went to church, and there were plenty of arguments as to why. And in English, your week starts with Monday. I mean, with Sunday on the calendar. On our calendars, it's not like that. It starts with a Monday. And so from that aspect, you guys have a better, a foot stand on there. But for us, it was, it's like I had to tell them why. So we would start with creation. Like one of my arguments was creation. The other one was with Jesus at the crucifixion. He rested on the Sabbath day. And then come out and got resurrected. And so like those are kind of the steps that I would talk to my friends about why, because they were like, why what's odd? Yeah. Why do you go to church on Saturday?
Everyone else, all the other Christians in the world.
Yes.
Sunday. So why do you have to be so weird? Yeah.
Yes. I mean, from what we're going to go through this week, we can see as to why this is such an important day.
Absolutely.
And like we discussed last week, that God made it holy. Therefore, we should respect what God made holy. I mean, that's it's not like rocket science.
Right. So, and by his very nature, he's the only one who can make something holy. Yeah, he can impart holiness to it. So, and again, by his nature, he doesn't change, does he? He doesn't just shift back and forth. When he makes something holy, it is holy. All right. And I like that you brought up the idea of Genesis, of the beginning.
Yes.
And I think we'll get into that here right in Sundays, right? Sabbath and creation. Because oftentimes there's this argument, and I've heard it put different ways, but there's an argument put forth that that's a Jewish thing.
Yeah. Oh, yes. 100%.
Over and over and over, because the Ten Commandments were given to the Jews as a people. And
mostly because Adventists also not only observe the Sabbath, but most of us we also try to abide by some of the other
health laws.
Laws. So not laws, but like health, I guess. I don't know how you would put that.
Directives, maybe.
Yeah. Guidance.
Health guidance. Okay, like the unclean
health principles. Yes.
I like that, health principles. So staying away from alcohol.
Don't eat pork or
the
other stuff that's unclean.
Right. Scavengers, that sort of
Preferably
thing.
no meat at all, which not everybody, but there's a myriad of other things that
sure.
And so that does kind of throw back to the Jewish thing.
Now the no meat at all actually that's a more modern thing, I guess. There was plenty of meat eating in the Jewish culture.
Oh yeah.
There was meat eating all the way. You see Noah get off the boat, and God says, this is what you're supposed to eat. This is what you can eat. There was nothing else to eat. It had all been destroyed except for the animals. But it is healthier, and there is no disputing that fact. Science now says it is healthier to not eat meat.
Yeah, I mean, you can go back to creation, and God's intention was it did not include that, and
it didn't.
And I guess it's a personal choice, but
sure, yep.
In the same way that we look at the Sabbath from the creation perspective, we can also look at the health laws as well, health directives or principles in that same way. Because if God instituted the Sabbath, then He also instituted not just that, everything, and how to live and.
That's an excellent way of looking at it. Absolutely.
What to put in your body and how that affects your body and everything else.
And
funny enough, we failed due to our appetite.
Appetites. Man, that encompasses so much.
Yeah.
Appetite. So it is pretty curious here when we start on Sunday's lesson that the fourth commandment is the only command. And again, granted, these were given to the Jews, but we brought up that the Sabbath was created at creation. Now, I believe in a literal 7-day creation.
Yes.
Me too. Yes. Okay. All right. That there are many in Christianity now that simply don't believe in that. They believe in creation. They believe in some form of 7-day, whether that was 7 periods, 7.
So they don't look at the Bible as a literal text.
Not the creation aspect of it. There are many who don't look at it as being a literal 7-day creation, but I do, and because of that, I see the Sabbath as a 24-hour period, a time period, that God sanctified a block of time that every 7 days comes around since the beginning of time. So to me, that's phenomenal, and it can't exist if it was just an indeterminate epic of time where God kind of set things in motion and the animals evolved after that.
And isn't it like remember, the word remember, doesn't it?
Yes.
It doesn't it kind of, it brings as to something else happened as to why it starts. The only one that starts that way is because God knew that we would actually forget. And it's funny that we say that we forgot it. Because the Jewish people, we know they didn't forget like the actual Saturday, which how to do it and what to do it, and they actually went in a totally different direction. But I guess in the span of thousands of years, where we're now 2000, the year 2000, plus the other ones if you count.
Right.
It's been definitely challenging for a lot of people to know when Sabbath is and what to do on Sabbath.
Sure, there's been a lot of challenges. People bring up the issue of the calendar changes and lost days, and there's a lot of, I guess, surface arguments. But I wanted to point you back to something. You said the Jewish people never forgot, but
so
remember
they
when
didn't forget. They didn't
forget.
The Sabbath. If you counted, you can, because we talked in one of the previous lessons. The Sabbath was before Sinai with the manna, because they had to do it twice on Friday to get the manna for the Sabbath.
Yes.
So that was one thing that was pointing to that, and there was no 20 commandments quite yet.
Not yet.
Then we got the commandments at Sinai, and then since then they've been keeping that day. Now, granted, maybe the way they're keeping that day is different. But
sure, but even prior to the manna, they were in Egypt.
There was no
for 400 years.
Yeah,
and it makes me think during that time, maybe there was some remembrance of Saturday as a holy day, but 400 years is a long time to live in enslavement.
Did Joseph observe the Sabbath?
I don't really think that. No,
you don't think so?
I don't think so. Not in the way that they were taught to after the Ten Commandments were given. And I do believe that is one of the aspects that God...
because in the Bible does say they brought him... One of the reasons that God brought him out of Egypt, because that he was done with, he was ready for them to be to the next step where they do observe the Sabbath and they do...
Exactly.
That's very... I never thought about it that way. I never thought that it would be lost there, and it's lost now.
And now too.
Terribly. We're talking about the Romans and all... many gods and all that, all that stuff.
Yep. And our modern time where now it's okay to be busy all the time, just stay busy. But science is starting to discover that we have to have rest in order to be healthy. We have to have rest, and this idea of being busy all the time is not actually as productive as we once thought. So something else though, and brought out because the Sabbath points back to creation. As you mentioned, it points us right back to the very beginning. And in my mind, something else that makes that especially important is because it points us back to the beginning, it tells us our origins.
Yes.
If we're just an accident, a cosmic accident, some stardust sprinkled on our planet back when it was, in the proteins and the lightning, and suddenly there was life, if that's the case, then all of this is like some great big joke, and we die, and that's it. And I go back to being energy somewhere in the universe, But
unfortunately, some people do have that.
Some people have that, and honestly, Sergio, I cannot think of what life would be like. It's hard for me to imagine.
We live with no hope,
without any hope, with thinking that this all around me is just as good as it gets, and that's it. After I die, I'm gone. I can't imagine what life is like for folks that have that ideology. So when the Sabbath points me back to creation and says, no, it's not that. Myself or humanity is created literally in the image of God. We are children of the creator of the entire universe, whatever that means.
Yeah.
That actually gives me a true sense of value, and says, I'm not just an accident. I was created specifically, in the image and likeness of God.
It's funny that you speak about that, because people that have that mentality, because it makes me think of, had we not had the 19th century, the 1800 when they come up with all this
that
great new idea,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at the same time that Ellen White was bringing out truth, there was a lot of untruth coming out.
Yes, there was.
Up until that point, even though they were the way they were, not accurate in all the doctrines and belief. At least they believed and they respected the authority of a human being that created them, right? After that, things radically changed to where now, they question the validity of the Bible. They put science on a pedestal, and the funny thing is when you look at science in the Bible, it actually correlates quite a bit.
Yes, it
does.
But
we won't go on that avenue.
Well, we might go down that road, but no, it does.
But
sure.
I mean, and now we get, and only in the last 200 years, people came up with this thing that we were not created, and that somehow we're so smart now that we can determine that. Right. And talk about all these billion years that it's all relative because of the dating, and all. I mean, it's just, and it's unfortunate because some people actually live by that.
Some people do, as though it is absolute gospel truth and there's no way for variance. And not to sit here and say that we can instantly poke holes in that and say, oh, it's totally false, but just the idea that this carbon-14 dating, that it decays at a constant rate. That's presupposing that our Earth's atmosphere has always been exactly the same.
But we know it hasn't.
We know that there was some worldwide cataclysmic event. It's in the geologic columns.
Which they also deny. Because they say it was not global, worldwide. It was only
right.
But
it certainly seems to be worldwide.
Yeah, because you can see, I mean, the rock formations and stuff. You can see how it's like stuff is like this way, or that way,
folded.
I mean,
and you can't fold rock unless it is soft at the time. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, again, that's a little bit of a rabbit trail. But it really does. It points back to not only our origins, but our value, and it gives us a place of who we are in this universe. That's a common question is, what is our purpose? What is the purpose of life? Well, if we believe in the Bible and exactly what it says, well, our purpose in life is being a child of God, and there's value in that. We're not just an accident, not just out to do the best we can and hope for the best.
And the way the creation happened, I mean, the Word spoke, and there was light, and God came there and continued the creation, and the same Word that spoke and created those things said the Sabbath is holy.
Yes. Yeah.
So I mean, it's like
for perpetuity. I mean, that's forever.
Yeah, forever. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not going to change.
So every week we should, keep in mind that this is what happened.
So each week, then, if we're keeping that in mind, each week, that's almost a renewed sense of my value, of my place in this universe, a renewed sense of who I serve, of who died for me, who gave his life for me. It's a constant renewing of mind and spirit and soul. I mean, how great is that?
Yeah, I mean,
that God saw fit to create something that would constantly renew us as humans. It's just, to me, it's one more aspect of his loving character. That just.
Well, they said that you can only level is the only one that conquer. Violence cannot conquer.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons that we're actually going. If you look at the stream of time, the great conflict and everything. That's the reason we are on this planet. Is because the way the God's principles are, we have to make our own decision to follow God. You can't be coerced or in fear, because fear does not conquer.
It does not. It can force a semblance of love or something that looks like love, but that's as silly as I remember. A popular preacher used this analogy between a man and a woman. He said, if the man pulls out a gun and points the gun at the woman's head and says, now, do you love me? If you don't, I'm going to shoot you. Well, the woman's going to say, sure, unless she just wants to die,
Yeah.
Sure, I do. And it can be vice versa. The woman could do the same thing to the man. But it wouldn't be love at all. So absolutely, when you say that, it brings to mind the idea that love, to me, is the most powerful weapon in the entire universe. And
because
it's a weapon that doesn't breed violence.
Yes.
But it's a weapon nevertheless. It's the most powerful thing that exists.
Because otherwise, I mean, if you think about why not take care of Satan when he's in heaven.
Yeah, snap him out of existence, right?
When the conflict started with all the 1/3 of his angels, just burn them out, get them done, done deal. We're good.
Blink him out of existence.
But it doesn't work that way.
So if
because all the 2/3 now are going to think, so if I even get a line,
okay,
this is what's happened. This is what's going down.
Yep.
And so that could not. And a God of righteousness, and how as we see in the Bible, as portrayed by the Bible, by the Word, then that gives you kind of a explanation as to why things are the way they are now on this planet.
Absolutely, that would be the same thing as the gun analogy. The angels, would have said, "So if I don't get in line, that's it for me." So absolutely, it seems like a terrible way, but it's the only way. It is the only way for the entire universe to see that love truly is the only way to be. Is to let Satan's lies play themselves out fully, and show what kind of kingdom his ideas bring. Yeah. All right, so we should probably move on to Monday. Huh? All right. I really like the title, Celebrating Freedom. And I'll tell you why I like it. And I know maybe this goes elsewhere from what it's talking about, but growing up as an Adventist, there were certain ideas about what I could do on the Sabbath and what I couldn't.
Yeah.
Rules or whatever you want to call it, guidelines. And I used to think, wow, this is really boring sometimes. And the older I got, the more I began to see a difference or read a difference into it. And so now the Sabbath truly is, sure, some days, some Saturdays, I work really hard and it doesn't feel much like rest, but I still find a sense of freedom in knowing that every 24 hours, that's the time that was set aside. And it wasn't set aside for rules, and it really made me think, and maybe it's all in the next, I don't know, it really made me think of Jesus' statement that the Sabbath was made for man. In other words, he was saying the Sabbath was made to benefit man, for the blessing of man. Man was not designed to rule the Sabbath. He says the Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. But there's so much meaning in that simple statement. Man was not designed in order to create rules in order to rule over the Sabbath. The Sabbath was simply created, and I like this because it doesn't say it was created for the Jews or the Adventists. That word man is mankind, humanity. It is a universal principle. God knows we need it. He knew from the very beginning.
Yeah, I mean, and he knew when Adam and Eve were not fallen yet. Nope. That was one, and then afterwards, we knew that after a whole week of going through what we went through, this should be a time where you look up. You don't look at yourself and your shortcomings and your nature, fallen nature. You look at God, and then But it's again, as we talked, I think last week or the week before, it really is about our attitudes and our relationship with Christ. Because if you truly believe the Bible, the Word, the same Word that
Living
created.
Word, sure.
If you believe it, then you come on Sabbath for something else other than, I have to go, and get up in the morning and go over there and just kind of, you're not making face. You're going there because you want to be there, because you want to give worship to your Creator. I mean, if you have that kind of relationship, then things like, oh, maybe I shouldn't go get gas, or let's go eat afterwards, or because then you're not that day. It's one day that you worship your Creator. You don't do other things.
Right.
But
and it's not out of a sense of there's rules that I need to follow. It's out of a sense of, like you're saying, giving worship to the Creator and finding ways. How can I do this? How can I continue to give worship?
It's like when you go to work. You go to your job. You don't go to your job and then stay on the phone with your friends, or oh yeah, let's get out, or let's
try to find ways to.
You got to be there, and you're doing your job because
you're there 100%, right? So
it's the same way with you when you come to South, you can't be in two boats, like
right. Well, then I could really see it continuing to be a drag, continuing to be, and ultimately, it seems like what it leads to is a misunderstanding of who God is. If you view the Sabbath in that way of rules and what to do, what not to do, that's a deep misunderstanding of what God's character is and what He represents, which is exactly some of the times that Jesus got really angry at the Pharisees. because of their misrepresentation of God's character. In fact, I don't know, have we already... Yeah, I don't know. Okay, well, we'll probably get to it.
Yeah, we can say it. We'll get to it. If we get to it, we'll get to it. It's not a problem.
Yeah. Okay, it was enough ranting. My apologies. I just got a little bit of a rant there. So I did want to read something, and maybe if I've jumped too far, I wanted to read Romans 6:1-7. It's something that Paul is saying here, that something about what we've been given in the Sabbath. So I don't know if I jumped ahead of anything that you wanted to especially bring out prior to that. Okay. Let's see here. So Paul says this. He says, "Well then, should we keep on sinning so that God can show us more and more kindness and forgiveness?" He says, "Of course not, that's the silliest thing in the world. Since we have died to sin, how can we continue to live in it? Or have you forgotten that when we became Christians and were baptized to become one with Christ Jesus, we died with him? For we died and were buried with Christ by baptism. And just as Christ was raised from the dead by the glorious power of the Father, now we also may live new lives. Since we have been united with him in death, we will also be raised as he was. Our old sinful selves were crucified with Christ so that sin might lose its power in our lives, and we are no longer slaves to sin. For when we died with Christ, we were set free from the power of sin." So this idea of freedom, that the Sabbath is also a reminder of our freedom, which strikes a chord at that idea that it's restrictive or constrictive to us.
Bondage, yeah.
That it binds us in some way, which is absolutely 100% false. That's as we might say now, it's a false narrative. It literally sets us free. It creates a place that frees us to be even happier and more fulfilled if we simply will keep the Sabbath holy. By what you were talking about earlier, by seeking ways to continue to find areas that we can worship God in whatever we do that day, whatever it is. So I really like that idea that it sets us free to be happier and more fulfilled people. It doesn't bind us or restrict us. Was there anything else from Monday that you wanted to bring out?
Yeah, I just want to read a little bit right here. It says, "This command, the command to worship the Sabbath, tells us to rest in the salvation that God has earned for us by his mighty arm. We are set free from our own attempts at righteousness as we remember that God is creator and that we can trust him to recreate us, to free us, even right now, from the bondage of sin if we are willing to let him work in us." Or, what I like is our attempts to be righteous, because a lot of people, some people fall into that category where
isn't that legalistic?
Yeah, where they think like if you don't do this, you're not gonna be saved, or
you made a good point a few minutes ago, and I guess I'm playing a little bit the devil's advocate here. You talked about finding ways that we can worship God. And I've known folks, and I'm not condemning this, because again, before we started the video, we talked about things that we might do or not do on the Sabbath, and how that's related to our personal relationship with God. So I've known folks that almost have a practice of going out to eat on the Sabbath. Mm-hmm. That's not something that I practice, and chalk it up to the way I was raised, to the way I believe now about the Sabbath. I'm not sure exactly. But it's not something I make a practice of. However, I also would not say to those people who do practice it that, by doing that, you're obviously sinning and going to go to hell for it. I wouldn't say that, because I don't believe that to be true. I might ask. I don't even know if I would ask them about that, because I believe that is between them and God. That's clearly something that either they feel is right, they feel is okay, or I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I'm okay with that. So this idea that it literally takes away this ability to work or to earn our righteousness, to earn merit in God's eyes.
Yeah, I mean, it's easier for our human nature to, if something is different than what we do, to immediately assign blame and assign, judgment as to, hey,
judge it. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, when we saw what happened with Jesus, when people started pointing fingers at the lady, and he started writing their things down, and they left, because. Yep. I mean, who am I? I'm not in no position to.
And that's basically what he was asking.
To evaluate. Hey, you're eating out now, so you're gonna probably not make it now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep. I think I spoke about this a couple weeks ago in a sermon about how the closer we draw to Christ, the more we begin to see our own inadequacies, our own faults, our own sins, or whatever you want to call it. Because we're living in the light that Christ brings to our life. And so as we look at ourselves in that light, we begin to see our true and truer nature, and to see the unrighteousness that exists. But as we exist farther and farther away from that light, then it's easier to look at others and say, oh yeah, look and see what they're doing wrong. And that's simply because we're not willing to look at our own selves, and we're not in that light that Christ provides.
Yeah, like last week we were talking about the Israelites when they're out of Egypt, going through the desert, and they all of a sudden they start, they were wanting the meats from Egypt. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
Like their appetite, and it's just, oh God, forfeit everything. Let's go back.
Yes.
Because we're hungry.
Completely forgetting what it was like.
And we're thinking, well, these some crazy people, and then like today, well, what about us today? Like, maybe it may not be that particular thing, but I'm sure we have a million other things that we would forfeit a lot of stuff.
That we would have our own thing that we would go back to.
Yeah.
And someone else looking from the outside might say, why do you do that? That's so stupid. But appetite can be, we can be slaves to it.
Oh, yeah.
We can absolutely be slaves to it. And not just the appetite, that when I'm speaking of food,
just
but appetites
satisfaction.
Yes, being satisfied, right?
Yes.
All right, shall we go ahead and jump to Tuesday?
Yes.
All right. The stranger. I guess we alluded to this a little bit ago when it talked about that the Sabbath was made for man, for all of humanity.
Yes.
And there's something right there that talks about this, huh?
For all, and God created. It says, after all, God created all people, so all people should remember the Sabbath day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if it was God's intent to use the Israelites as a beacon of light for the other people around them.
Sure.
Instead, we wanted to have kings and do all that good stuff.
Well, and then
in parentheses, quote unquote.
Can you imagine this beacon of light that the Sabbath was intended to be, and then a stranger coming through Israel, perhaps on his way or her way somewhere else, on a Sabbath day, to witness these hundreds or maybe it was thousands of rules. The person couldn't pick up a bedroll, couldn't put out a fire, couldn't divide a thread into two pieces. Couldn't do all these things. It wouldn't, to me, in my mind, I would say that
wouldn't be so much light.
No, that wouldn't look like a beacon of light. That would see almost like
this is an oppressed people.
A beacon of darkness. Yeah, this is I don't want any part of this. And yet, we kind of chuckle at that. We laugh at that. But as Seventh-day Adventists, have we had our own part in making that a reality in our world today, when we begin to treat the Sabbath as a time of do's and don'ts? Do we really truly make it a beacon of light to those around us? And when I ask that, instantly I want to say, well, yes, of course we do. But being really honest with myself, in the years that I've been an Adventist, I can say sometimes, no, we haven't.
I mean, like right here, the question says, how could your own Sabbath keeping perhaps become a blessing to those who don't keep the Sabbath? That is how can you use the Sabbath as a witness to others?
Yeah.
And that made me think, interesting. Like, when I look at my Sabbath routine, I'm like, I don't really have a whole lot of contact with the people that are not Adventists
on the Sabbath.
Okay. Now, home, yes, because I stepped out of the church, and the entire village was non-Adventist mostly.
Okay.
But here it's a bit different. But yeah, I mean,
So let me ask you something then, and this is a real question. Does this sound like it might be a witness to someone if you came across them on the Sabbath and they said, "So what's so different about it?" Say, "Well, let me tell you about the 10 Commandments." Would that be a beacon of light, or would delivering food to someone who needs it, or helping change a tire on the side of the road because you see a blowout, or literally helping someone work on their car to get it back on the road so they can make it to work on time? Granted, they may not understand the Sabbath, but they will understand that you are sacrificing of your time to the benefit of someone else.
Yeah, I think that speaks to to ways to where you worship, on Sabbath day. I think that's one way to look at it, because you can't just take the 10 Commandments out of Exodus out of context and just hit them with a little knowledge right there on the spot. I mean, that's
what is
not
that going to mean to them?
No.
Yeah, it's not going to mean anything. But you sacrificing of yourself, and literally when you give of your time, when you give of your talents, when you give of anything that you have the ability to give of, you are building blocks on the kingdom of God, because that's what the kingdom is built on, right? Is selfless giving. I mean, that's what God's whole existence is all about, is selfless giving for the betterment of the universe. So I really and truly believe.
Yeah, this Tuesday it really spoke to me, because when I first got here, I kind of have trouble with people that, like, when you drive down there's people begging or getting stuff.
Sure.
And I'm not like a terrible person about that, but like at first I was really like, man, not judgmental, but like, you shouldn't, you can walk, you can get a job, do things. Mm-hmm. That was my, but instead of looking at it as, like Jesus said, that could be me. Every time you help somebody, that could be me. I was looking at it as, hey, I was already like, judging the situation, why don't you get a job? Like, I have a job, I don't make any money. Like, I'm not a lot, but I have a job.
Yep.
Then you should do the same. Yeah, but the thing is, to me, it was like, maybe Sabbath could be where you're witnessing through your actions when you're helping people, rather than putting a blame on them and be like,
amen.
Yeah, you shouldn't be here. You should do this or And I struggled at first. My wife would always tell me, like, you need to be more compassionate. You're just so you're not very compassionate when looking at other people that are not, maybe going through some issues or whatever that might be.
No idea.
Yeah. And it's not our business to know all of it. We just need to help out. And when I look at it that way, I'm like, wow, maybe there is the different way to treat. But it says here that we have to respect and treat people with dignity.
Since you brought it up, I'm going to go down this road for just a short little distance. That statement about Jesus when he's talking to his disciples, and he's telling them what it's going to be like, and he said, when you do these things for the downtrodden, for the least of these, it's like you were doing it
for me.
That tells me, for one, that he associates so closely with all of humanity, not with just someone who has a clear relationship with him, but with all of humanity. He associates so closely that it's like doing it for him. And then the second part of that, just really, it hits me hard, Sergio. He's talking about the two different groups. He said they'll be divided, and he'll say, they'll come to him and they'll say, Lord, when did we see you sick and hungry and tired? And he said, when you didn't do it to the people around you who needed it, it was like you weren't doing it for me. And these are people who, in another area, Jesus says, they claim, we preached in your name, we prophesied in your name,
cast out devils,
we cast out demons in your name. You know who that group is? That's religious folks. Mm-hmm. That's people who did all the right things in their life.
Yep.
And because of doing the right things, claim to know Jesus, but the claim isn't reciprocated. Yeah. He says, no.
Get away from me, I don't know who you are, right? Or something
he calls them lawbreakers. He calls them religious people. He says, you're lawbreakers because I don't know you and you didn't know me. Mm-hmm. That hits to my heart, Sergio, because if Jesus equates a relationship with himself as keeping the law, it means maybe we don't have maybe we don't always have a correct understanding of what that means to keep the law. He's making it equal. He calls them lawbreakers because they didn't have a relationship with him.
Yeah, because you can try to keep the Ten Commandments all day long, but if you don't have a relationship with Christ, he doesn't know you. It's simple as that.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the thing. When you try, it's like those righteous attempts where you're attempting.
Yes.
But you can't. You're all falling short of glory, right? So
those are good things, right?
Yeah.
Preaching in His name.
Those are all good.
Sure.
But yet, you're doing it because It's almost like acting, because you haven't died to yourself quite yet.
It's like I had an analogy a while back. It's like now you'll get this because you're of a certain age, but you remember VCRs, right?
Yes, I do remember.
Okay,
that, yeah.
you got the big tapes, the VHS tapes.
I still have one at the house.
Okay, all right. We've got one, but it's not plugged in. So I asked my wife. I said, "Should we throw it away?" She's like, "No, keep it. We still have tapes." So we kept it. But it would be like reading the user's manual to a VCR and memorizing it and knowing exactly how it works, and expecting that because you read that, I now have a better relationship with the manufacturer of this VCR. That would be ridiculous.
Yes.
No, you know how to use the VCR, but you don't have a better relationship. That's the same thing as though, doing all of these things the right way as a Christian, now I have a better relationship with my Maker. No, that's ridiculous. You got to have a relationship with the Maker, and then out of that relationship, He teaches you to do the things that He wants you to do. So, yeah that's just
very, very true. Very true.
What do you think? That was now you read that final question there. How could Sabbath keeping and I think we've mined that a little bit. So
yeah, I think we can move on to the
Wednesday. Okay, all
yeah.
right, sounds good. If you'd start Wednesday, I'm gonna go ahead.
Yeah, the Wednesday title is "Serving Others Honors God's Sabbath," and I could read the right there. In the New Testament world, the religious leaders had Sabbath keeping down to a fine art. There were dozens of prohibitions and rules established to help keep the Sabbath holy. This included a prohibition against trying to untie, like you were speaking, anything separating the two threads, just kind of what we spoke earlier, extinguishing fire, or transporting an object between a private domain and the public domain, or transporting something of more than a specific distance in the public domain. So, I mean, it had all these other rigors that, and to me, it almost speaks like you said, you're doing all these things, and yet you're not doing them right. You know what I mean? You're not honoring the Sabbath.
Right. It doesn't accomplish that goal, right? It doesn't accomplish the goal of honoring the Sabbath. Yeah. So now you listed those things, and today we would say, well, that's silly. Who messes with thread today, or we don't even have fires today, So
I think it was just referring to activities because in our context, this could be
right, and that's what I'm getting at.
Phone, TV. I mean, it could be numerous things.
Okay,
food,
all right. What does that look like today?
Fast food.
Sure.
Yeah, you'd rather you can't go get a burger.
So, honestly, what do you think about that? I mean, they're extinguishing fire or starting a fire. Well, that's how they cooked. That's how they,
Yeah.
So they had all sorts of rules for helping you keep it holy. But now we say, I don't make a practice of going out to eat on the Sabbath.
Yeah, because I mean, if you were,
I'm gonna go a step further though. Would I have a problem with buying several Happy Meals to deliver to someone sitting on the corner who says, "I'm just hungry, please help"?
Yeah,
I don't have a problem at all doing that, because to me that is lawful to do good on the Sabbath.
Yeah, I mean, some people can hit you with, well, you by buying, then you're encouraging them to break the Sabbath.
Yeah, they hit Jesus with all kinds of same things too.
You know what I mean?
He told that man to pick up his bed and walk on the Sabbath.
Yeah, it's one thing when you, like you said, it's one thing when you go to, hey, let me get these hungry people or downtrodden people get something to eat real quick. It's one thing, and it's another thing where, I'm really hungry. I'm just zip in real quick, grab something to eat real quick.
Motivation.
Yeah.
Am I doing it
selfishly?
selfishly?
That refers to you, to what you said. Do you know Jesus? Do you have a relationship with him? And the sin doesn't really, matter, but it doesn't matter. It matters how, you right here. How do you,
what's the reasoning?
Yes.
I'm hungry. Okay, that sounds pretty selfish. Or, that guy over there looks really hungry. And I have the ability.
Which one honors God?
Which one honors God?
Sabbath.
And it's clear. I mean, you brought it up. Jesus said, "When you do for the least of these, that honors Him, almost like personally." So yeah, absolutely. So motivation is a clear, I think, that divides what we do.
Yeah, I really like right here on Wednesday where it says Isaiah 58:13 and 14. If you turn away your foot from the Sabbath, from doing your pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy day of the Lord honorable, and shall honor Him, not doing your own ways, nor finding your own pleasure, nor seeking, nor speaking your own words, then you shall delight yourself in the Lord, and I will cause you to ride on the high hills of the earth, and feed you with the heritage of Jacob your father. The mouth of your Lord hath spoken. So I mean, in this verbiage right here, I mean, it speaks how important the Sabbath is to God, and how important it is for us to take heed and learn from this words that were to Jerusalem, to the Israelites.
I'm going to go back just
nor speaking your words. What do you think that means? Nor speaking your words.
Okay, so let me read that same thing in the New Living, and
this is New King James version.
Okay, and I really enjoy a variety of English translations, because in that variety you can kind of get a real general picture.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this one, words a little bit differently. It says, "Keep the Sabbath day holy. Don't pursue your own interests on that day, but enjoy the Sabbath. Speak of it with delight as the Lord's holy day. Honor the Lord in everything you do, and don't follow your own desires or talk idly." I thought, talk idly. Like, I could get together with someone who I happen to know that they enjoy talking about guns. And it's a Sabbath afternoon. Guns and knives, which I love.
I've fallen in that.
Okay, all right.
I've fallen in that.
And we might get in a good conversation about the latest pistol, and how they design the magazine for it, and it's just great to shoot. But it goes back to that question that you asked earlier as we first started the lesson. How am I giving worship to God through that, through that conversation, or even am I?
I think the second one is the more accurate one.
I'm not sinning, but I think that certainly qualifies as idle talk, and yet I've done it so many times. I'm not faulty. I'm guilty of that.
And some people, you're just being Jewish. You're being too
legalistic.
But it's not. So that's the thing. The way the perspective matters, because are you looking at the situation from the perspective of, hey, he has a relationship with Jesus and he does not want to jeopardize that in any way, or is he doing that because he's just being Yeah.
I'm keeping track of what I say so that I don't say the wrong thing. Yeah. Which one is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, sometimes there's been talk that, when we talk about wanting to help others on the Sabbath, and someone will make the accusation, the gospel is not a social gospel. The gospel is the gospel of Jesus Christ, of salvation. He died, He rose again to save you from your sins. I get that. That's truth. That is biblical truth. But there is an aspect of it to the social gospel. And I wanted to go back in that same chapter, Isaiah 58, because I love the first 11 verses, all right? Or the first 10 verses of this. Now, I'm going to start in verse 2 of Isaiah 58, as this is God talking. He says, "Yet they act so pious." Excuse me. I'm sorry, verse 1. He's telling Isaiah, "Shout with the voice of a trumpet blast and tell my people Israel of their sins." In other words, you better speak this as loud as you can. It says, "Yet they act so pious. They come to the temple every day. They seem delighted to hear my laws. You would almost think this was a righteous nation that would never abandon its God. They love to make a show of coming to me and asking me to take action on their behalf." Ouch. Okay. Ouch. "We have fasted before you," they say. "Why aren't you impressed? We have done much penance, and you don't even notice it." And here's God's response. "I'll tell you why. It's because you are living for yourselves even while you are fasting. You keep right on oppressing your workers. What good is fasting when you keep on fighting and quarreling? This kind of fasting will never get you anywhere with me. You humble yourselves by going through the motions of penance, bowing your heads like a blade of grass in the wind. You dress in sackcloth and cover yourselves with ashes. You might as well say you dress in suits and wear ties. Is this what you call fasting? Do you really think this will please the Lord? No. The kind of fasting I want calls you to free those who are wrongly imprisoned, to stop oppressing those who work for you. Treat them fairly. Give them what they earn. I want you to share your food with the hungry and to welcome poor wanderers into your home. Give clothes to those who need them. Do not hide yourselves. Do not hide from relatives who need your help. If you do these things, your salvation will come like the dawn. Yes, your healing will come quickly. Your godliness will lead you forward, and the glory of the Lord will protect you from behind. Then when you call, the Lord will answer, yes, I am here. He will quickly reply, stop oppressing the helpless. Stop making false accusations and spreading vicious rumors. Feed the hungry and help those in trouble. And I love this. Then your light will shine out from the darkness, and the darkness around you will be as bright as day. Man, okay, it just, to me, it can't get any more clear than that.
Yeah.
You know, are you acting religious or are you being Christ-like? And that's what he's asking them here in all of those 10 verses. Are you just acting religious to try to get me to notice you? He says, that's not what I'm asking for. I want you to be Christ-like. That's social gospel to me. You know, being Christ-like, doing all of these, doing, not just acting like it. So
yeah, that's one of my favorite. Very good.
Yeah, one of my favorite passages, and it really strikes. It cuts to the heart of organized religion, and I think it should. I think it absolutely should. We should constantly be evaluating ourselves and say, are we completing the mission that God gave us on this earth?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the problem is like in Romans 6, you know, where you're living in sin. You know, you know, a lot of us don't choose to die to ourselves, so we don't choose to let the other person behind.
Right.
You know, the unfortunate part is that we do things, and you know, if you don't have a relationship with God, with Jesus, or it's you know, it's evident, and so it's kind of hard to.
So then it becomes selfish motive.
Yeah.
If we haven't let that self, that we call it man of sin or the flesh, or self,
just because you come, just because you come here and come here every Sabbath, dress nice, and it looks like one way, you know, it's a dangerous path to walk on. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Because God knows the heart, and
you said
just
dangerous.
like He knows them, you know, like they get all
they
do all these actions. Well, this should be well if he was sincere, if he was you know, actually seeking God, putting sackcloth and ashes, that would be doing.
Sure.
Like Nineveh and all those people that did that and got saved.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it, let me do this real quick because I know this will, you know.
Yeah.
And then I'll be all right, and then I'll be all right afterwards.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't. And the danger, you said, is that it's dangerous, and I agree with you. The danger is that we can then begin to fool ourselves.
Yeah.
Into thinking.
I'm good.
Well, I am pretty good. Start to pat ourselves on the back. Yeah, I am pretty good. I mean, people notice. They look at me and they say I'm good. So yeah, and that is very dangerous. You're right.
I think they speak on Wednesday a little bit. They say God does not want empty worship or pious silence. He wants these people to be engaged with other people, especially downtrodden and marginalized. And that right there, I mean, He tells them right here.
Yeah, it's
that's
clear.
when I'll hear you, when you actually are a beacon of light around you, not the darkness.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. And that's what becomes the beacon of light. Is our. So again, we're not working towards salvation. We're not earning merit. We're simply reflecting, you know, Jesus to others.
Yeah, and I mean it speaks to creation too. God created us, created Adam and Eve, and gave them dominion.
Yeah, oh yes.
And gave them over the creation.
Okay, that's an important word.
And we are,
Tell me about that.
And here you are, instead of being the light, you're being, the darkness.
Okay, but dominion. Tell me about that though, because dominion, that almost. When I hear that word,
dominion is like you were a steward. Like they were given Eden, they were to grow, work it and grow it.
So it doesn't mean necessarily rule over, like lord over something.
Stewardship. It's actually, in fact, it would be more like servant.
Okay.
Like you're taking care of it. In other words.
Okay. All right.
Now we had, because of the way we're created in His image, we have other abilities and characteristics that none of the other creation had, and so because of that, we were. stewards, and so you're taking care of it. You're doing other things than just, and that I think that speaks to treating the downtrodden, because we're on this earth, and we're given a job, or we're given a purpose.
Sure.
And it's certainly not to
say, hey, look at how much better I am than you. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Anyway.
Right. Absolutely. That whole I know. I think they spoke about dominion early on in the lesson, and we didn't quite get there. But it was a great word, because sometimes, sometimes people look at that and say, "Oh, see, God really is just a selfish ruler or a despot," and that's not it at all. That idea of dominion, you hit the nail on the head. Stewardship. We're actually in service to creation.
Yeah, and I think they mentioned, I'm not sure if it's Friday or Thursday, when they mentioned a little bit about because obviously right now they're saying like the protecting the environment as a political issue.
Yes.
And they were saying that
but we have dominion over the earth, don't we?
Yeah.
So what is that? Yeah.
I mean, it's like you're not, you can't. I don't know how to, like, in the scale of things that we have now, that affects the entire planet.
It does.
And you actually were saying how would you use Sabbath to help to help the environment, but yeah, I mean, you were steward, so you can't do things to destroy what God has given you.
Yep. And and we all have a certain ability to impact the world around us. Some people have more of an impact, some people have less. But just because I have little in comparison to someone else I know that may have a bigger ability to do it, doesn't mean that I shouldn't do what I can. In my little circle of influence, whatever that is. I'm still a steward, aren't I? I mean, I still, in some respects, I have dominion, which makes me, should make me environmentally conscious about what I can impact in the world around me to take care of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like cutting the grass and things like that.
Sure, absolutely.
But on a different scale,
Right.
But I mean, that being said, there is a lot of political, not dilemma, but like
there is.
A lot of people have different opinions, and
the instant you bring
one goes this way and one goes this other way, and
some people just. I might say the word environmentalism, and someone else is going to hear, "Oh, tree hugger." One of those. Like, no, not one of those. But shouldn't we still have some responsibility?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way you said it is the right way. Like you have to take care of your own sphere.
Sure.
And just like Adam and Eve were to take care of their garden, and that's. We were here to. I think that's what that dominion word means in that aspect.
Absolutely, not some sort of rulership where we can just do what we please with it because we were given dominion. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I did not actually get through Thursday's lesson, but the title is "The Sign That We Belong to God." Who is we? And maybe to start that, do you mind if I go ahead and read that first paragraph?
Yeah, I actually like that one pretty good. I remember it now. Sorry, it took me a bit.
During World War II, England was expecting an imminent invasion by the German army. Preparations were made to defend the island home as much as possible. Extra fortifications were installed along the beaches. Roads, of course, would offer the enemy the fastest route to their objectives, and consequently blockades were installed at strategic points. English authorities then did something strange. In order to slow down and confuse the enemy, railway signs were removed and road signs were taken down. Engraved markers on a stone or on buildings couldn't be taken down, but they were covered with cement. And it goes on to say, signs are significant. They serve as markers and guides. And of course, nowadays, you use GPS to get anywhere you want. But before then, we had to have a map, a physical map, and we had to watch for signs. We had literally, you get the passenger, okay, you look for this sign when we're driving somewhere.
Yeah.
So
I think it alludes to the Sabbath as a sign of God's perpetual. Because if God did that at the beginning, it is meant to each week to remind us, to give us a sign, like when you see a sign on the road that this is the way there, or this is where you're at. And so the Sabbath, I think it was meant. I think they're talking about the Sabbath being like a sign that points to creation and points to where we came from and who created us.
So, is it possible, Sergio? Tell me what you think, because I've kind of got my own thoughts about this, but tell me what you think. I absolutely believe what you just said, the Sabbath as a sign. Is it possible that it can point both directions at the same time? It points back to our origins, points back to our Creator, our value, and our purpose. Is it possible that it also points to our future? Because we've talked about this idea that it gives freedom, and yet I still feel like I'm enslaved to sin sometimes. So can it point two directions at once? Can it point to our future as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can.
Okay.
And I think it also ties in with the fourth commandment as well.
Okay.
Because, apparently we do need a sign every week. And, that's
this whole idea of remembering.
That's true for me. I mean, I think it's true for everybody. Mm-hmm. That sign is raised every single week to remind us, because we need reminding.
So even more than that, so reminding about the Sabbath, I guess on the same lines, a reminder that we can be free and we will be free one day, so that we don't just continue to live the same way over and over, knowing that we're just going to keep messing up. But there's a promise. That if God created us, and we believe He did, it also points us to a future when God will ultimately set us absolutely free from this cycle of sin and failure. So, as a sign, I mean, when you're going somewhere and you might think you're lost, and you finally see the sign that you've been waiting for, that's a relief. You think, okay, I'm not lost. I see that sign. It tells me where I'm going is accurate. I really feel like the Sabbath can act as a sign in that sense. Every single week, we get that sign that says, this is where you've been, and this is where you're going.
Yeah, and like I said, the fourth commandment, we have to remember it.
Yeah, absolutely. The Sabbath and the fourth commandment, again, I do believe it points in both directions at the same time. Mm-hmm.
On Friday, I wanted to read a thought here, if I can find it, when Ellen White speaks about God.
All right.
Let's see if I can find it. If you have another thought real quick, you can go ahead. I'm going to try to find it real quick.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and read that first paragraph while you're searching the second one. It says, all heaven is keeping the Sabbath, but not in a listless, do-nothing way. And I picture, okay, I have to be transparent with you if you're listening. Maybe you've heard, or maybe you've been given a picture of heaven being clouds and harps. And so you might imagine if the angels are keeping the Sabbath that day, then the only thing they can do is lay around on the cloud and strum a harp over and over. And Ellen White, who's a popular and widely published Adventist author, in a book that is entitled Testimonies to the Church. If you're following along in the lesson, you can see it's page 362, volume 6. She says this: all heaven is keeping the Sabbath, but not in a listless, do-nothing way, not laying around on clouds and strumming a harp, okay? On this day, every energy of the soul should be awake. For are we not to meet with God and with Christ our Savior? We may behold Him, we may see Him by faith. He is longing to refresh and bless every soul. That does not sound listless to me. It doesn't.
No.
All I get to do is lay around and maybe take a nap or something like that. That's not saying take a nap is wrong. Sometimes I need that, but again, not listless. So
my one was the next one. It says,
okay,
the demands upon God are even greater upon the Sabbath than upon other days. His people then leave their usual employment and spend the time in meditation and worship. They ask for more favors of Him in the Sabbath day than upon other days. Yeah. They demand His special attention. They crave His choicest blessings. God does not wait for the Sabbath to pass before He grants these requests. Heaven's work never ceases, and men should never rest from doing good.
Wow.
And I thought that was, and obviously there's more information there, but more good points down there. But to me, it was like, if we come here and we pray every Sabbath, and because we are two and more gathered in His name, He's here.
Sure, absolutely.
Then when we get out of here, then maybe we should not cease to do good either. You know what I mean?
Not cease to do good. Now that doesn't mean that I got to get out of here and instantly instantly start delivering food to homeless or.
But it should mean you see somebody on the road, stop.
Sure, absolutely. Or if I get home and my kids say, "Dad, let's go we haven't done anything all week." No, I'm gonna lay down. Wait a minute. What's doing good? Yeah, I'm gonna spend time with my kids, and even I may be a little tired, but I'm doing good. Doing good. So never, man, I love that. Never rest from doing good. That's potent.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's helped me to have a different, because when you start your day in a different mentality, it changes your perspective for the day.
It does.
Because all you do is go to work, come home. The routine is just kind of like a treadmill, or like what do you call it?
You're just running in circles.
Yeah. And so it puts in a perspective when you get out, you start your day, and you have a thought of, okay, I'm not going to cease to do good today. Or
today's that day.
And even more so on Sabbath.
I can treat any day that way, but the Sabbath is that's 24 hours.
And I think
specifically set aside.
I like how it says that God. She says that God doesn't wait until in the Sabbath to grant those wishes or grant those requests.
Right. He's constantly at work. Yeah.
And it ties to in Isaiah where it says, that's what I'm going to say when you call my name and say, here I am. Mm-hmm. So if you truly start, have a relationship with God, then He will be there for you.
Yeah, that Isaiah thing, man.
Right? I mean, it says that's you're doing all these things. But
says,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, they say this is the fast. He says, that's not the fast I want. Let me tell you about the fast. And then goes on to describe all of these things about never ceasing to do good.
No, this was a very good lesson. It was very, very good.
It. Well, would you mind if I go and close this out with prayer? All right. Father in heaven, Lord, thank you so much for joining us this evening as Sergio and I had a chance to sit down and study together to discuss the Sabbath School lesson. And Lord, thank you for bringing to our hearts and our minds new insight, new truths as we've studied together. And Lord, I ask that you would do the same for those that will study with us online as they watch this video, that you would speak to them with your Holy Spirit in their hearts and minds and bring new truths, new convictions, new concepts perhaps, new perspectives, things that perhaps they just haven't examined in that light before. Amen. That it would transform all of our lives, Lord. That we would go on to utilize these things in our daily life, not just as an exercise in studying a book, but as something that truly does transform us and shape us to be more like you. Lord, thank you for being such a good God to us all of the time. Even when sometimes we look around and we have trouble seeing it, you are still at work. You never cease from doing good. Help us to follow your example in that. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Well, until we see you next week, may God bless you.
Everyone have a good Sabbath.